In my last video, I took a look at Suzanne Collins' dynamic young protagonist Katniss Everdeen, and deconstructed her character in relation to gender, violence, and feminism over the course of the first novel in the Hunger Games trilogy. If you haven't seen it yet, go ahead and check it out. The Hunger Games movie adaptation, directed by Gary Ross and starring Jennifer Lawrence as Katniss, was released in March 2012, and it broke records at the box office, proving yet again that women can lead successful blockbuster films. Take note, Hollywood. I had two big concerns going into the movie. First, that the violence would be glamorized, especially considering the medium of cinema tends to sensationalize explicit violence and gore. I was pleasantly surprised that the filmmakers strategically chose to limit the depictions of violence and largely avoided celebrating the bloodshed. My second concern was that Katniss's character would be sexualized on screen. Thankfully, the filmmakers very intentionally chose not to sexualize her at all, even in a scene where she's taking a bath. This is truly a remarkable accomplishment given a Hollywood system that insists on sexualizing practically all their female leads, on and off screen. Obviously, whenever a novel is turned into a film, there will be notable differences because of time constraints and other factors. Let's take a look at a few of those differences. If you haven't read the book or seen the movie yet,
spoilers.
Fair warning. While reading the book, we're inhabiting Katniss's mind via first-person narrative. We're following her inner dialogue, so we know her fears, her desires, and her needs in a much more intimate way than the film can deliver. This isn't necessarily a flaw in the movie, but I did feel like the horror of the Hunger Games and the debilitating fear and anxiety that the tributes would feel didn't come across quite as well. However, on screen, we are given some hints and clues into the complex feelings of Katniss via Jennifer Lawrence's incredible acting, and because the camera was able to linger long enough for the nonverbal expressions to come through. A less skilled actor wouldn't have been able to pull this off. Although I did really enjoy the movie, there are a few major shortcomings worth mentioning in the film adaptation. While I was impressed with the overall look and feel of the wealthy capital city, it was disturbing that the art directors chose to have effeminate and apparently queer men exist only as a part of the decadent, superficial, and rather sociopathic ruling class society. The decision to portray gender bending as somehow exclusively the product of uber high fashion elitism is deeply problematic. In the first novel, it's made clear that Katniss, and presumably the other tributes, are hyper-aware that their every move and action is being watched and scrutinized by the arena audience, much like the reality TV shows of today. So in addition to trying to survive, the tributes are performing and acting as a way to gain sympathy and gifts from sponsors. Strangely, this performative layer is not emphasized or prioritized in the movie, at least while they're in the arena. So for instance, in the book, it's made clear that Katniss is faking her affection for Peeta in order to solicit medical supplies, while in the movie it's more ambiguous, and we're led to believe that she may be genuine in her feelings for him. Later, what's interesting about the novel is that Katniss has difficulty separating the performative aspects of her relationship with Peeta for any genuine affections they might feel for one another underneath all the pretense. Secondly, when I watched this film in a packed theater on opening night, I experienced this horrible moment of cognitive dissonance in the scene where Thresh brutally murders Clove, the young female tribute from District 2. Here's the problem. We as the audience in the real world are watching a story in which a fictional capital audience in turn is watching and deriving pleasure from the death of children. So understandably, you and I are supposed to be horrified by the whole media spectacle of the Hunger Games. But when Clove's head is bashed in and her lifeless body is thrown to the ground, the real-life audience in the theater I was in actually cheered and gained satisfaction from her death. Ironically, we are encouraged by the filmmakers through the construction of this scene to behave in the same way that the capital audience does. Disturbingly, the filmmakers intend us to enjoy Clove's murder and see it as justified because they've set her up as a dehumanized and ruthless figure. This is an utter failure on the filmmakers' part to be consistent about portraying the horror of the death of children. If the filmmakers are trying to make any statement at all about the reprehensible nature of the Hunger Games, they need to be consistent in the way that they portray all deaths as horrific. The fact that Clove's death wasn't portrayed as appalling is a major failing. Interestingly, even when Cato, a major villain in the arena, was killed, we weren't meant to celebrate his death. I'll go into that in just a second. Although Jennifer Lawrence does a phenomenal job playing Katniss, we should take a moment to talk about race and casting in the film. In the book, Collins clearly describes Katniss as having olive skin and straight black hair. So you'd think that the casting call would reflect that, asking for actors with olive skin and straight black hair. But in fact, the casting call specified that only Caucasian actors would be allowed to audition for the role of Katniss. Unfortunately, this isn't an issue with just one film or one casting department in one studio. This is a problem across the board everywhere in Hollywood. And one of the major consequences of this type of systemic whitewashing is that the stories of women of color rarely make it onto the big screen, and actors of color aren't even allowed to audition for most leading roles. For more information on challenging whitewashing in Hollywood, check out the Race Bending website. I do want to point out a couple of things that I think the movie did better than the original novel. First, the film's format allows us to see multiple events happening simultaneously in different locations. So when Katniss shows compassion for the fallen Rue and then signals her solidarity with Rue's District 11, we are shown a cutaway of the spontaneous uprising in that district. This is missing from the book, but ends up being one of the most powerful and effective moments in the movie. Well, I think one of the major failings of the book and the movie was that there was no attempt, not even a little bit, to humanize the career tributes, including Cato, Clove, Glimmer, and Marvel. In the movie especially, they're portrayed as completely sadistic, inhuman monsters who take pleasure in killing to an exaggerated and unbelievable degree. However, the film version treats Cato slightly differently towards the end. In the scene where the 3 remaining players are trapped on top of the cornucopia, an emotionally distraught Cato laments the fact that all he knows about life is killing. He realizes that he isn't going to emerge victorious, and we see his carefully constructed, entitled reality fall to pieces. We're given a glimpse into the human being underneath the learned savagery. During this interaction, Cato turns towards the sky, taunting the game makers in the Capitol, saying, "Are we giving you a good show?" in a desperate and unhinged voice. This is a critical, humanizing moment that illustrates the twisted brutality of the games and its emotional impact on even the most ruthless players. This stands in stark contrast to the novel, where Cato is dehumanized from beginning to end. I'm really glad the film made this change, but I wish they would have humanized the other career tributes, at least a little bit. So in conclusion, I still highly recommend reading the first book and going to see the film. I think overall, and especially in comparison to the rest of what Hollywood has to offer, Katniss is one of the best young female characters I've seen on screen in a long time. Disappointingly, over the course of the next 2 books, Catching Fire and Mockingjay, Katniss's character growth not only stops, but actually regresses in many ways. I'll go into details about the failings of Book 2 and 3 in a future video, but for now I'll just say if you haven't read the 2 books already, I wouldn't bother. If you liked this video and want to see more in-depth analysis of female characters in popular culture, please support me in my work by donating today. You can visit feministfrequency.com/donate.